took all of that. To this day, my son struggles with severe anxiety. He struggles with depression. He was 21 at the time this happened. He's 24 now, and he still has not recovered. Passing this bill is going to help to mitigate the law-abiding citizens of Michigan, the good citizens, good people of Michigan, from facing the devastation that civil asset forfeiture brings forward. Thank you for your time, and we rely on you to make Michigan a safer place in that regard.
Thank you. I believe we have a question from Representative Lefebvre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Miss, I'm so sorry to hear.
Ms. Jocelyn. Yeah.
Miss Jocelyn, I'm so sorry to hear that this happened to you.
What, you know what? I just want to comment on Michael's testimony there. I mean, that was a beautiful summary of exactly what is wrong with this law. Now, everybody, Steve Fisher also, can you maybe cue up Steve Fisher next, do you think? Thank you so much, Jim. Veteran, Army veteran. The question, you want to play that? Okay. Okay.
Are we going to Fisher?
Well, the question was, I can summarize what that representative. Well, no, that was the gentleman that was the treasurer for the largest township, wasn't it? Yeah. Oh no, that was Tristan or Cole.
Play, I don't know, right there.
Yeah, play it. Go ahead and play
I'll
it.
ask you a question, they say.
Okay.
This is Representative Cole.
I'd like to know when the property was
this
seized.
is the nice guy.
At what point and what portions have you had returned to you, and how long did it take to get any, if any, of that back?
It's more of a procedural issue. If I could, the raid took place. She was served with the forfeiture action, attempting to seize her home and the contents therein. I was not representing her at the time, and there was no insight any criminal charges, or we weren't notified. They weren't notified that it was going to happen. She ultimately settled with the prosecuting attorney's office and walked away with whatever she could, but she had to give up her home. She had to pay another $10,000 when her home was sold, and the proceeds of which went to the state of Michigan. So it wasn't until a year later that the criminal charges were brought, and then I began representing her, and we defended, and it turned out there was an illegal search warrant.
And if you can, please.
I'm sorry. So none of the things came back. They're gone because there's a separate proceeding.
And then, if I may, so there was no percentage in that settlement that you had? There was no percentage of, like, being able to get your son's piggy bank back or anything like that?
That's fine.
Unreasonable.
Nothing of substance. She gave up her house.
You might have got your mop back, but you didn't get your car.
I didn't get, nothing, actually.
So
it was unreasonable terms that were put forth. And after being devastated like that financially, and there's not really a means to pick up and pay more. You're paying for legal fees and all of these other things that go along with living expenses. I didn't have money for my house payment, even if I had nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you very much. Do we have additional testimony, or?
Steve Fisher just wanted to comment if he could.
Sure. Okay. Representative Cole does have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What year was the search warrant issued?
2015.
2015.
2015. What was your primary income source in 2015?
I had a doctor's office that I ran.
Okay, right.
And I had a few other income streams in addition to that, self-employed. But
The reason I ask, if I may, Mr. Chair, is I believe the original way that the medical marijuana bill was written, that it was not to be profitable, if you will, when you're providing for patients. That's why I asked about that. So that wasn't your sole source of income.
it was not. No, it was not.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for your time today. Just like to say a few words in support of Bill 4158. Like those before me, I'm also a victim of civil asset forfeiture as of April of 2016. I'm 51 years old, and my name is Steve Fisher. My wife, Leslie Fisher, is also included in this. We were raided in April of 2016, and the cops proceeded to take a bunch of our property, things that they deemed were of value to them. A little bit about myself. I served in the Army from 1985 to 89, and shortly after that, I started my own business, a landscape company, which I ran for 19 years after that. And then I sold that business in 2013, and since then I've been running electronics recycling business. So I've been a little self-sufficient, you know, with feeding my family, taking care of ourselves, paying the bills. My wife worked at the casino for over 22 years. And so you know, when I served in the military, I gave the United States a blank check with my name on it. And that check said, cash at will. And I was better for the service to my country. I'm proud of it, and proud of what all of it stands for. So for me to have to sit here and explain that the civil asset forfeiture law is flawed, that it needs fixed, that the execution of it has been abused by law enforcement, and that prosecutors vigorously fight to try and keep my property even after a dismissal is quite disturbing to me. My wife and I didn't even have our day in court, but yet we were being punished prior to that, in the sense that they'll take your property, albeit economically. They were supposed to take things that they believed were linked to a crime. A perfect example of how law enforcement's total disregard for this is the fact that they took a car that I bought brand new in 1987. The car had less than 30,000 miles on it, and the last time it was plated was in 2009 or 2010. So I can't get my head around how they justify taking property like that. It has nothing to do with anything. And I guess I need to mention that me and my wife were medical marijuana patients, and I was her caregiver. I didn't caregive for anyone else at the time. Another thing I wanted to add too is, back when this happened, we also had to pay the bond that they were allowed to put on the property at the time, just so we could have our day in court to fight to get our property back. And again, I'd like to thank you guys for this time, and I am in support of Bill 4158. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Representative LaFave.
Sir, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, I thank you for your service to our country. We can't have hearings like this without brave men and women willing to pay the ultimate sacrifice. If you're not comfortable answering any of these questions, totally understand. Just background about how many plants did you have in the house, and approximately what items, the laundry list of such, did they take from your home? And last question is, what, if anything, did you get back at the end of it?
Right. That's a very good question, and I'd like to answer just in this regard. And this is the point I was trying to make, because your question would suggest, well, maybe the police were justified in doing what they did if he was way outside of his compliance or whatnot.
And I don't mean to suggest that in any way.
Understood, and I think it's an important point to make, which is that the decision of this noncompliance is being done by the police, who, if they make that determination, the individuals are no longer immune, and the way the law has been interpreted is that marijuana is still illegal in the state of Michigan unless you're immune from it because you fit this narrow category and volume limitations. Now, the volume limitations, which was the issue in this particular case, deals with a specific term of art, which is usable marijuana.
I'm familiar.
It's got to be dried.
Yeah.
Now, when a patient harvests 2, 3, 4, 5 plants of the 12 or up to 72 that they have, they've got soaking wet plant-like material. Law enforcement does not contemplate this. They call it process. I remember at a Judiciary Committee in 2011 when Representative Horn asked someone from the Michigan State Police, in light of the definition of usable marijuana, what does the Michigan State Police have to say of that? And they said, we do not have a comment. Okay, now, the significance of that was the issue of usable marijuana remained elusive. It was not defined. And therefore, this wet plant material, you could go in and say it weighed 20 pounds, which is what is common. I have hundreds of cases like this, when in fact, it wasn't dry. It was not ready for use. And the purpose of the law was to protect people from arrest, not create nuances that, exceptions that could pull people out of their immunity. And that is unfortunately what has been happening. You wouldn't see an increase in arrests of marijuana 14% every year and 15 million in proceeds when you have a state law that was intended to stop that behavior. I mean, the legislature in 2016 amended the law retroactively. I've never seen this before in 25 years of practicing law, retroactively to cure what the legislature has been unable to do, which is to protect patients from getting arrested. I mean, that's a declaration that the law has not worked with its original intention. And the statistics show it, because you got an increase in funds and an increase in arrests. So the point is that the allegations through the eyes of law enforcement are not, and again, it's not their fault, I would even say. They were not educated on this. It's a new area of, and that's been an unfortunate fact. But these things that I'm talking about have been used, unfortunately, to promulgate and increase the forfeiture proceeds. But the allegations were, of course, about issues of usable marijuana. They find them on a drying rack, intending to be drying, not dried. So things like that have been, play on words to pull people out of immunity. And it is a good point and very good question. Thank you.
Well, it's a Section 4, not Section 4. If you're out of Section 4, then they see it as a free-for-all.
That's true also.
Then they hit you hard. And it's like Section 4 exists, Section 8 does not exist.
Well, if let's skip that then. If you don't mind, just briefly give me the list of property that was seized and what, if any, was returned.
They took 2000 Cadillac Eldorado, 2009 Chevy Silverado, the 1987 Buick Grand National, all my guns, 6 guns, all the ammo, gold and silver that I had in the house from my recycling business that I reclaimed myself from circuit boards. A trailer, 14-foot enclosed trailer with a snowmobile in it. All the grow equipment that I had. I also had a extraction equipment to make concentrates. What else did they take?
And
The list goes on. So, it was things of value and things that were easy to take. They just cherry-picked us. And we ended up getting all the vehicles back, the enclosed trailer, the snowmobile, some power tools, my cordless drill, table saw, 2 computers. Funny thing is they took a computer out of my house. I had in my office in the house, I have 2 desks. I have one desk is I do everything but pretty much email on that. So I got some computer games on there. They took my gaming rig and left the computer that I do all my emailing on.
Okay, we had to move along. We had a number of additional people to testify. If there's no additional questions, Representative Cole.
What year was the search warrant and the item seized?
2016.
2016.
And we just,
Yeah, that was him.
what was it? December 20th, I think it was, we just got some of the stuff back. But the court order was to return all the property, all seized property. Prosecutors refused to give it back to us.
Currently under law, is it legal to possess marijuana and firearms at the same time?
Well, that's a good question. The MMA keeps private the names of the registry of who are the patients, and there is obviously a Second Amendment right to possess. I know that the ATF has commented on this under the pretext that under federal law, all Schedule I drugs are addictive. And
So what I'm getting at is there maybe was just cause to retain